Hello and welcome to PDX Garden Home. I'm pricking out the last of the Snapdragon seeds that I have. I planted a bunch of seeds to germinate back in July for the fall garden, and some flowers that I plan to germinate and get growing, some perennials that I plan to germinate and get growing, and then grow in the greenhouse over the winter and then put out next spring. So that's the deal with the Snapdragon. So yeah, it's taken a good month for me to get everything germinated in July pretty quickly, within a couple weeks, and then I'm just now getting to finishing up getting all of those, what we call pricking out, and putting into cell trays or into pots. So I'm on the last leg of that, and it's almost mid-September here. So that's just in time, and once I'm done with that, then the stuff that I've been pricking out, I started pricking out a month ago. So there's things that I already put in pots, some vegetables and some flowers and things that I put in pots weeks ago, that once I'm done with this, the next step will be to go put those out into the garden beds for the fall garden. So that's what I'm up to. It's been rainy and cool here in Portland, Oregon the last week or so, but today and tomorrow are supposed to be nice sunny days and perfect for gardening. So I will see you all as you kind of follow me around on some of our projects. Well, in today's episode, we've got a lot of trimming to do. We're going to start with the blueberry bushes. We transplanted these blueberry bushes last year, so there's not a ton of growth to trim, but we do want to take a look at the crossing over branches and trim back and get things ready for next year. Then we're going to head over to a butterfly bush. The butterfly bush always grows really big, no matter how far we cut it back. So we're going to cut it back quite a bit this year, and then we'll get good growth next year, and it won't get out of control on us. Finally, we're going to finish off in the small fruit tree orchard. These fruit trees are only about a year and a half old, and we are training the trees espalier style.
Hi. Well, you can tell the blueberry bushes are done for the season. It's been hot, so they're getting a lot of heat here. We have been watering quite a bit though, so it's not that there's just not enough water. It's just that's it for them for the season. I mean, that soil is very warm, but when I dig down, there's definitely some moisture down in there. So it's not just a lack of water. It's just what happens as it gets really hot in the season and they get to the end of their time on this. So I'm going to go ahead and trim them. We're at the beginning of September, so I'm going to trim them now. And the goal of trimming these are like a lot of trees or bushes, is I'm going to try to eliminate any crossing over branches, and with the goal of kind of keeping the bush open and airy, and then just also shaping it a bit to kind of keep it in the confines of the bed for the sake of the look of the garden and the ease of harvest and all that. So that's what I'm up to here with this, and I'm going to start here by taking off this branch right here. These bushes aren't that thick or developed, so there's not that much trimming to do here. I'm going to go ahead and take off this whole middle one here. There we go. Keep it open area there. And the reason I cut these down further here is just for the sake of the composting. It's hard to deal with if I got big branches. All right. I'll let that be for now. We'll see how it comes together in the spring as it revitalizes itself. Move my wheelbarrow down and we'll tackle the next one. Got my amaranth These are amaranth plants growing all around it here. And they're getting old and ready for hypothetical harvest. I'm not going to harvest them because we grow this for decoration rather than as a food crop, but they could be harvested similar to quinoa. Again, my goal with what I'm doing with this is to eliminate any crossing over branches and keep it growing open and airy as much as possible. That's all I'm going to do on this one for now. Okay, so I'm going to keep continue on my trimming on this bed with these here, and then we actually, what you see around here are flax. These are flax plants. These are the flax seeds that now that the plant's kind of dried out. What's fascinating about these flowers is that when they're in bloom, each flower dies every night, and then a new one pops out the next morning. And so the flowers that we see are always a new flower. And then we grew this year both the scarlet flax and then also a blue flax. But I think only the scarlet flax is still blooming where you can see it here. So that's just a side note, but getting back over here, getting back into my trimming here. This guy's got got our nasturtiums growing up in it. Our nasturtiums ended up using this guy kind of like a trellis. I'm cutting this one back because I don't want it to grow out over the path. And be careful not to mess with my nasturtiums too much. Oops. These nasturtiums have a particular smell to them. And I like the smell, but it's kind of like this fresh, kind of greenish. I don't know. That's my description of it. Fresh greenish is my description of the smell of nasturtiums. Okay, well, I'll see you all in the next segment.
Well, here we have a bush that's called, I may butcher the name, but Budellia. It's also referred to as the butterfly bush, and in some places it's considered to be invasive. This bush was already on the property when I came, and you can see kind of the remnants of the purple flowers there that it produces, which are nice and also a little bit fragrant. But this grows very vigorously, and so all of this growth that we see here actually came about in one season. So we're going to cut it back. I'm going to be cutting it back to the base quite a bit here, and then let it be for the winter, and it should probably regrow pretty vigorously then in the spring and into next summer. So my first stab is I'm going to be lazy and see if I can just efficiently cut this back starting really close to the base, but if that doesn't work, then I'll kind of do it in pieces starting at the tips more. But our pieces are into straighter pieces. That's just for the sake of being able to clean up my mess later easier. Okay, so
We have our little fruit tree orchard here, which is about, these were bare root trees put in, I would say, a year and a half ago. And yeah, they've grown quite a bit. They didn't give us any fruit. There were like little pieces of fruit that, that came on some of these this year, but it usually takes a few years, in my experience, before you really start getting a lot of fruit. And so this is an apple tree that I'm starting with here, and this is what you call doing espalier with the trees. And I'm trying to kind of grow them so that there's a corridor here in the middle of them and kind of grow them flat along this. I've done that at another property before successfully and enjoyed it. One of the things is that after you kind of put up the guide wires, you often have to tighten them. So we use these turnbuckles to do the guide wires so that they can be tightened up later. But yeah, it's amazing how much slack comes in and then more tightening needs to be done. So I'm actually toward the end of the turnbuckle, so I may actually literally have to undo the wire and redo the wire and then do the turnbuckle at some point, but this is fine for now. Okay, so my approach, or what I'm going to do here, is I often find that it works well to literally just weave the soft branches of the growing tree on the wire like that. So that's good. I mean, that's about as long as we're going to want it to get. So as it starts growing more this way, we'll cut it off. And these things over time will sprout branches that we will cut down in order to keep this main branch, and then we'll only let little small stub branches come off of it to produce enough area that there can actually be fruit. I'm gonna, just for the sake of trying to keep it there, I'm gonna put a little tie in here. I'm not gonna tie it at the very end. I'm gonna tie it somewhere over here. And when I tie it, I try to keep the tie a little bit loose. I don't tie it all the way securely against there, because the branch is going to grow, and I'm just trying to keep a little bit of guidance there for it. I don't want to suffocate the branch. I've had with these kind of this jute twine, I've had it where I've done it and it's worked out okay, but the branch has actually grown up and around the tie over time, and the tree's been fine, but strikes me as something I don't want to necessarily do on purpose if I don't have to. That one's looking okay. So here you can see kind of an example of where we're trimming here. This is my main branch here, and so I'm going to trim these guys down, so maybe there's a couple leaves there. So I'm just trimming those guys down. So eventually this branch will get quite thick, and then there'll be these little stubs with little branches there. And that's where the fruit will bear on these little things over time. There's probably a more scientific approach to this, but this is just me winging it from my experience of having done it before. And you know, a tree naturally wants to grow up, and it naturally will want to grow branches out of these main branches. So this is a constant, probably, I'd say at least 3 times a year, maybe sometimes 4 or 5 times a year, depending on the situation, I suppose. Okay, so this is my branch on this lead here. Just winding it around, letting it go. I'm going to put a little tie in there. So on this espalier style I'm doing, I kind of have a fence line with 3 levels to it. That's the design I'm trying to achieve. Again, I'm not tying it super tightly, just putting a loop in there that keeps it, guides it that way.
cutting back farther some of the branches around here. I'm not leaving as much of a stub there because I just don't want it to compete with the leaders. I'd rather have little branches growing out on the leaders later than have a bunch of little branches kind of in a cluster right there kind of thing. So I'm trying to clean that up more. Yeah, looks good. I'm gonna put a little tie-in over here. And this one's pretty ready to go. Okay, so this is an apple tree here. Behind me here is a peach tree. And I've not done this with a peach tree before. I mean, it looks like it's kind of working the way I want it to, so I'm gonna go for it. I did this with a fig tree too, which is a little bit weird. I did it at one property with a fig tree, and it doesn't really come out the same way as a fig, doing it as a fig tree. Because you kind of have to let the fig tree fan out more in order to get fruit. The apple tree here works really well. I mean, you can really keep it cut to these leads and you'll get fruit and it'll work out. But I noticed with the fig tree, I kind of had to let more growth happen in order to really get enough fruit. And so I don't know what that means on a peach tree yet. We'll see. I like the branches of this peach tree though. I mean, I think they're easy to work with in terms of training here. Easy to cut, easy to wrap around my wire. That's it. I'm not going to do a lot more with that. The bottom rung here is still pretty sparse, so I'm not messing with that too much. This is the way I did this was a little bit unusual because I got a branch that starts here and I curved it around to go that direction, which what I might do if I am inspired and remember to is if another branch kind of starts here, I might turn that into the lead and get rid of that one just because it might be more natural. But yeah, that's that one. Okay, so we have a pear tree here, and actually there's not a whole lot to cut off this one yet either. A little bit of branching action there. Dump those. That guy. I don't have a lead here yet, so I'm leaving this guy. I do have a lead here, so maybe I could take this guy. And I will. We'll go ahead and take that guy off. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I'm going to do on that pear tree. Back here then we've got... Looks like I may have lost my tag on this one. I suspect, well, feeling the apples and the wood and everything, this looks like a... Feeling the leaves, I should say, in the wood, this feels like this is an apple tree of some sort. I lost the tag on it though here somewhere. Okay, so what do I need to do here? Well, I've got leads on the first level, so I'm going to cut these back here.
So here I've got at the top, well, first things first is I don't have leads at the middle level yet. I've got this nice long branch here, but it's actually coming from much lower. I could use it as my lead here, or I could wait till I have a branch that actually comes off here. And I'm kind of impatient. So I think what I'll do is use what I have. So I'm gonna use it here and then tie it in as my second level, even though it starts much lower. So when the branches are green and supple like this, you can just wind them around your guide wire. It'll kind of, my experience is it'll kind of just grow around the guide wire for the most part. But what I'll do is at the bend point, I'll put a little tie in, and again, I'm not going to make it very tight. I'm just going to put it there as a guideline. All right. And then at the top, I've got another decision to make here, but I think this one is more obvious to me. So I don't have a lead going this direction, but I've got these two possible branches, and this one is kind of right where it should be to do it. So I'm going to try with this one first, but I'm not going to, before I cut this one off, I'm going to see how well this one bends before I cut this, because I may want to use this as my lead. Because that's a pretty hefty bend there, but it's a new branch. It's pretty green, so whoa, see? I was too aggressive. So I'll go ahead and cut that off now. That's unfortunate that I did that to myself. Okay. But that's why I didn't cut this guy. I kind of suspected something like that could happen. So there we go. Now I've got a lead going that direction, and like I did earlier, I'm gonna put a little tie in at the point that it's connecting with the wire, just to give it some guidance there. Going to mess with right now quite yet. This was a cherry tree, and I say it was, no, it wasn't. I'm sorry, this is a plum tree. This is not a cherry tree. I hope it survived. The thing is that this main branch here, there was another main branch like this that kind of died, and then you've got these kind of suckers that have come up, and so it might be okay. The reason I say might, though, is because these fruit trees are grown on what's called kind of rootstock, and so what they do is they graft the fruit tree onto another kind of tree that doesn't necessarily have fruit. And so if the main tree kind of dies, but your trunk is still kind of survives and then starts sprouting other stuff, starts sprouting like this, there's no guarantee that it's actually going to be the plum, because it depends on where the graft was. And so all I may be doing here at this point is growing the root stock that doesn't actually have fruit on it anymore, because the part that had the fruit might have died. I don't know that. I really just don't know. So I'm just letting it go, and we'll see what happens before I get too into it. So that's the story behind this guy. Okay. Well, that's it for this segment. I'll see you guys in the next one. Well, we've had a busy day here in the garden. As always, it's a good opportunity to be outside, especially here in Portland while it's not raining down on us. We've got a good day in a week that otherwise was pretty cool and wet. So that's it for us here today. I'm going to see you guys all next time. Thanks for joining us. And as always, if you're enjoying these videos, get anything out of them, please subscribe and tell your friends and family about it so we can grow this community more. All right, take care now. Bye.